This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Thursday, November 12th, 2020 regular meeting of the North Haven Board of Education to order at 6:30 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen who are listening into our Zoom call, please put your phone on mute. We cannot conduct the meeting if your phone is not on mute. There's background noise, there's family noise, there's been a little cursing in the background. So please put your phone on mute. Thank you very much. So I will begin with a roll call to identify all meeting participants from the Board of Ed. Please say here after I say your name. Anita Anderson, here. Joe Salamini.
Here.
Randy Peterson.
Here.
Wes O'Brien.
Here.
Jen Ciccarelli.
Here.
Dot Logan.
Here.
Amanda Gabriel.
Here.
Eleni Diga Giorgio.
Here.
Patrick Stirk.
Here.
Melinda McKenna.
Here.
Howard Wardlow.
Here.
Jen Stewart. Jen Kozanowski.
Here.
And Joyce Lepre.
Here.
Thank you all. To begin the meeting, I would like to make a motion to add a motion to this agenda. And this added motion would be to include a motion to vote on the district's instructional model over the next few weeks. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Okay. Thank you. We will add that to the motion. Excuse me, we will add that to the agenda. First item I have on here is our consent agenda, which is our approval of the October 8th, 2020 regular Board of Ed meeting. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on this consent agenda? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any absenteeisms? Okay, that motion passes. Next, we'll get to our staff communications. Before we go on to that, I would just like to say to the board that if this meeting should extend past 8:30 p.m., I have to leave from the call, and Joe will take over from the call. I have to leave for a personal obligation, and then Joe Salamini will continue to the end of the call. But right now, let's go to our superintendent's report, which is going to be an update regarding the district's instructional delivery model.
Thank you, Ms.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Over the past few weeks, North Haven has seen quite a surge in positive cases, especially over the past week. According to the Connecticut Department of Public Health town-level COVID response framework, North Haven is considered in the red level. These levels are measured by the number of positive COVID cases per 100,000 population per day. Once a town hits 15 or more positive cases per 100,000 population per day, they're considered in the red zone.
This morning, the pontiff extending congratulations to
the Connecticut State Department of Education's leading indicators use this same measure. However, their guidelines state that the district should consider less in-person learning when their community has 25 or more positive COVID cases per 100,000 population per day. As of today, North Haven has a 22.9 positive COVID case per 100,000 population per day. New Havens County is now at 28.7, which placed the county in a high-risk level for the leading and secondary indicators. North Haven continues to trend toward the high-risk level in both the leading and secondary indicators. To note, the case rate data all districts receive are a week behind. Numbers we receive today are for the span of October 25th through November 7th. The school district alone had approximately 11 positive cases after these numbers were reported. To date, there are 31 positive COVID-19 cases within the district. 13 of these have occurred over the past 6 days, 4 today alone. I recognize that there continues to be no evidence of community spread within the school setting. However, these cases are significantly impacting the district. If the district was in person this week, North Haven High School, North Haven Middle School, and several elementary classrooms would have needed to quarantine for an additional 2 weeks. Also, Montauk School would have transitioned to full remote learning as of today. Due to the fact that the district was not in session, some of these cases did not present an infectious risk to the school community. Approximately 235 individuals are currently quarantined due to being close contacts. To date, there have been 680 individuals who have needed to quarantine since the start of the school year. These are frequent and disruptive changes to our instructional model and are very disruptive for our students and staff. It is extremely difficult to develop routines and continuity when switching from in-person to remote on a weekly and sometimes daily basis. When we began this week, I had every intention of returning to the district's 4-day in-person hybrid model. However, the number of positive cases, as well as the lack of predictability in learning models have changed my outlook. If it is decided to return to in-person instruction on Monday, there is a very strong likelihood that one or more of our schools will then have to transition back to remote learning before the week is out. These changes in models and unpredictability does not provide a quality instructional environment for students and staff. Therefore, I am recommending the following. The district moves to a full remote learning model beginning Monday, November 16th through Friday, December 4th. The week after Thanksgiving will be a full remote learning week at the strong recommendation of QVHD. It is believed that the week of remote learning will limit positive cases, which will impact the district. In making this decision, we recognize that there are only 6 days of in-person learning prior to the Thanksgiving Day break. The district has already been operating in a full remote model, and transitioning for 6 days would highly disrupt the routines that are beginning to be established. The goal is to resume in-person learning on Monday, December 7th. However, we will continue to examine the data and consult with Quinnipiac Valley Health District to determine next steps. In moving to a full remote platform, the primary reason for this transition was safety and consistency. Staffing did play a role. It has been increasingly difficult to find enough staff to keep schools open. Proactively, district hired 14 permanent substitutes at the start of the year to ensure we had enough coverage. We utilized Kelly's services to find and place substitutes, but we have made every effort to not use these substitutes because they also work in other districts. Districts across the state are struggling with the same issue, and some are transitioning to full remote learning to remedy it. The district will adhere to the following schedules at the elementary and secondary levels. There will be 5 days of live synchronous instruction at each level, followed by individual and small group support and intervention blocks. Oops, right too far there. At the elementary level, these blocks will be small chunks of time, about 15 or 20 minutes. At the secondary level, targeted supports for struggling learners, as well as enrichment opportunities, will be established, and the exact approach continues to be worked out by Ms. Bankowski and Dr. Dowling. The district has posted for reading and math intervention aids for each building, but like filling for substitutes, these positions have been difficult to fill. So our K-5 district coordinators will also be providing intervention with a focus on Tier 3. These supports will be utilized while we are in the full remote model. Parent conferences at the elementary and secondary level will be held in December. All conferences will be held virtually. The schedules will be communicated from each building's administrator in the coming weeks. And again, we continue to communicate with families on multiple fronts. I encourage everyone to access the COVID Learning Hub. It's constantly updated with information from the district, each school, CDSE, and CDC. That concludes my presentation for this evening.
Why is that? Oh. Was somebody from the board saying something? No, okay. So my phone was on mute. So the Board of Ed, may I have a motion to approve transitioning to a full remote learning model beginning Monday, November 16th through Friday, December 4th, 2020.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have our discussion. I know there's something that we have may have. I know for many of us, this was not what we had wanted. As of this morning, I was even assuming that we would go back to school next week. But after listening and talking with Mr. Stirk, town officials, looking at alternate ways of teaching virtually. When I say virtually, I'll say in person. I don't see another way for us to do this with the amount of people that are increasing within our town. I don't have the numbers on where they're coming from, but from, I don't have, I should say, the numbers maybe where they're coming from specifically. But as we said, we know it's a little bit outside of the school, but a lot of the COVID spreads are coming from individual gatherings, coming from some outside school sports programs. And those are the two that we know when they do the contact tracing, where some of these are coming from. And with the holiday coming up and many people continuing to have small gatherings, I believe going back, giving it time to run its course, and then coming back on December 7th may be our best option.
Oh.
Does anyone else have anything to say on that?
Can I ask some questions if that's okay?
Do you care if I leave those for a couple minutes?
Go for it.
So I'm going to try to just remain neutral emotionally, right? And look at this rationally because, I want the kids to go back to school, right? But based on some of the data that's being presented here today, I think that maybe some clarification on a few things will help a lot of the folks on the call also understand, why this transition is happening. Because as you said, Mr. Stirk, the intent was to go back to school on Monday. But I mean, just today, things went up in the air, and one of the elementary schools was going to be online anyway because of how many people these quarantines are affecting. So I have a couple questions, and it's more just for my clarification, and I'm hoping it will also help clarify for some of the parents kind of why this is happening. I feel like, again, right? So we're saying that the spread isn't actually occurring in school, right? So we do have appropriate safety measures in the school. The kids are wearing the masks. We haven't really had many issues that I know of, at least, with mask wearing or anything like that. The desks are 6 feet apart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it seems that the issue with the COVID cases isn't that it's spreading within the school, but the impact that those positive cases are then bringing to the school. Correct. So can you go over just again in general, or can you share those numbers again with us? Like how many people this week alone would have had to quarantine just based on the cases that we had this week, which actually aren't accounted for in last week's numbers?
I don't have the exact quarantine for this week alone, but if we were to enter back into school on Monday, 230 or so individuals would have to be quarantined. And if we were in school this week, half of our schools would be out learning virtually, the middle school, the high school, as well as Montaweeks.
Okay, so that would have really left just the 3 other elementary schools in person for as long as we would have been able to keep them there. But based on what we just saw from today, that we are concerned that putting them in school, then taking them out, putting them in, taking them out is just.
That's what we're trying to avoid. I mean, granted, being in person is the first option always, but to be in person, for example, to Tuesday or Thursday, just to go back out for another 2 weeks, does not seem to provide any continuity with instruction. So I view our second best option is to go fully remote, because then we can guarantee some continuity there. And granted, as I've said, I recognize this is not the best option for us, but it is the most consistent one that we can provide.
And if we were in this week, 2 other elementaries would have had classes quarantined at least. So that would have had impact even in the buildings that we're in.
Okay. And then from what you're saying with the substitutes and just even trying to hire reading specialists, and you mentioned a shortage of staff. So can you just elaborate a little bit on the shortage of staff and how that affects everything?
Sure. So there are staff members who are quarantined due to a school quarantine, but there are also staff members who are quarantined due to activities outside of school. So that increases the numbers that we have control over. In addition, Quinnipiac University has just went fully remote due to a surge, and we utilize a good number of their student interns for our substitutes as well. So, and I'm not comfortable having them back in district right now. They're in the same spot we are. So, and even if we were to go attempt to hire more substitutes, they are not out there to be hired. They're no different than the instructional aides that we're struggling with. Like I said, we made every attempt to be proactive over the summer to hire a good 14, 15 more substitutes because we knew this would be coming down. And there was some question about also placing paraprofessionals in classrooms. I take some issue with that. They are there to support learning. They are not there as teachers per se. In addition, I also believe it's not in their contract to be supervising students for a full day. That's really a teacher's responsibility.
Okay, and then just a couple more things. So you presented the kind of new schedules for, I don't know why I did that, but the new schedules with the 1 to 3 blocks. So those 1 to 3 blocks are I saw it for the elementary, and then the other 2 slides I think had something there for the afternoon time.
The middle and high is the same as elementary.
Okay.
Yes.
And the students, it won't be the full 2 hours with the teacher, but that's more for like individualized kind of pinpointing or however the teacher wants to do it, or
however the teacher meets their student needs. It could be through intervention or enrichment. Really, when we look at putting a student online, regardless of age, K to 12, asking them to be online for 6 hours a day is not developmentally appropriate. So going to 12 o'clock or 12:30, and then having that additional time where teachers can meet specific student needs, we find will be more effective.
Okay. And like I have 2 elementary age kids, so I think I'm speaking a lot to that elementary age and how difficult the remote learning can be for them and how they're just kind of all over the place, and their teachers have been doing a really good job of trying to reel them in. So again, thank you for answering the questions. I'm just trying to clarify, why not go back for Monday. So, and then just one more thing on the education piece. I think we've heard a lot of parents, like I've heard from a lot of parents myself, I'm concerned about, the education and, where they should be and where they are and if they're falling behind and all this stuff. So has there been any talk about maybe comparing iReady diagnostics or any sort of diagnostics maybe that they do this year to last year and seeing kind of where they are and trying to help? Or has there been any kind of talk on how to assess where we are, where we should be, how we're going to address that? Or is that just up to the individual teacher?
No, there is some district talk to that, and we are also starting to implement more of those formative assessments. In addition, we're really prioritizing standards at this point. So we got some directive from the state that kind of doubled down on that. That's what we started from the beginning of the year. So there is going to be some lapse here. I mean, we haven't had a strong, no one has had a strong school year yet, unfortunately.
Right.
And we will continue to look at that throughout the year. As far as, we took the first 6 to 8 weeks as more of a transition back, really focusing on the students and the staff's social and emotional well-being and making sure that they were transitioning back with their physical, emotional, and social well-being, as a priority. But we've transitioned not away from that, but just more to keep including academics. Unfortunately, that was the route we needed to take, and I think most districts needed to take after being gone from March until September. It's a long time to then re-up academics as full board without adjusting for the SEL as well.
And that's one of the reasons why the continuity of a instructional platform is really important, because at least we'll have 5 consecutive days as opposed to in and out. And, we talked about a whole bunch of different models, but we felt this gave the best instructional time for kids consistently right now.
And we often look at, and there's the mental health of students, the mental health of staff, and we value in-person instruction overall. But there also is something to be said about having students adjust to these different models and the uncertainty that each day brings. If they're in a second grade class and they see their other second grade class in their building no longer in school, because it's very difficult to explain to a student. So moving to this continuous instructional model that will not vary, I think, is very important for this time.
Okay, and we're still just saying up to the 4th, right? For now?
The 4th at this point, yes.
And that's to take care of Thanksgiving, right? To allow time to see what happens after Thanksgiving, if there's an increase in numbers?
Yes.
Because a lot of the colleges and universities are dismissing after Thanksgiving. So.
Yes, and I think there are quite a few districts, school districts around the state that are also dismissing till, mid-January.
Okay, but we're still saying December 4th for now.
We're still saying that, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, and I know other people have questions, so I'll stop taking up all the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple questions if that's okay, Anita. Okay, thanks. So thank you for kind of talking about the subs for sure. And I know that a lot of folks are concerned with mental health impact on kids. And you've talked about like coming in and going out and kind of the persistent transitions between being in quarantine and being in person. Can you talk a little bit about the additional mental health safeguards that we've put in place? I don't know that everybody knows or has heard about the SEL program or understands what services are at their disposal should they feel a need to reach out for help during a difficult time.
I'm actually, Jen Stewart has a much better grasp on this tonight. I'm going to let her kind of take the lead on this, and I will chime in. So Jen, if you're there.
Yep, I'm here. So at each level, there's a social work and a school psychologist that is there to support the students, the staff, and families. So at each building, if you do not know who your social worker is or your school psych, you can either ask the principal or you can send me an email, and I am more than happy to share that information. At the middle and high school level, we have counselors who are also there to support students, staff, and families. Students can receive counseling, in each building. Some students have services for their IEP or 504. If families are looking for support outside of school, our support staff can recommend services as well to go to outside places in the community. And then as far as our SEL, our social emotional learning district initiative, is really looking at the core competencies, which is self-awareness, social awareness, responsible skills, decision-making, and I'm forgetting one. It'll come to me as I talk. So all this, the competencies is what the staff have been teaching the students in during lessons during the week. At the middle and high school, it's done on a weekly basis, and they're focusing in on certain competencies. So an example is at the secondary level this month, they were really talking about how the students are dealing with their anxiety and stress and how they can take care of themselves. They've also been talking about understanding others' perspectives and then empathizing with one another, because we may have different experiences, we may have different thoughts, but we can still respect each other. At the elementary level, the staff has really been working with the students for them to identify their own feelings, checking in throughout the day. The month of November, they've really been talking about what they are grateful for. So it's really looking at how students are as a person, and then how we can all be inclusive and diverse in each classroom and in the community. The newsletters I send out each month really give a little overview of what each level is doing based on the core competencies. There's some text that are more at the elementary level that families can read with one another. A lot of the books are online. You can YouTube, and there's a nice video for it. The other piece for the social emotional learning is for us to just really get to know who we are as an individual, and then how we can all work together to make our schools stronger and our community stronger. If it's okay, can I just kind of share a little more about the SEL that I was going to put in my report when I was going to talk? Is that okay? Okay. So the month of December for social emotional learning is going to be a month of kindness. So the entire district is going to work on kindness for the whole month. So we're in the planning stages of that. So stay tuned for that one. And then to support the staff, I actually sent out a monthly Google presentation to acknowledge them and to acknowledge what they can do to take care of themselves. So that actually goes out once a month.
Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
I do just have a couple other quick questions.
Excuse me, Amanda, can I just interrupt for one quick second? I'm sorry. I'm getting a couple of text stands from people saying that they're trying to get in and they can't. Is the meeting full?
No, I'm just telling people to use their full legal name to enter instead of just iPhone.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Dan. Sorry, Amanda. Thank you.
No problem. So the opt-out program schedule is not going to change with this change. Is that correct?
Correct.
And have we had... sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it will stay the same. As we started that program, it will stay as it is.
Great. And then have there been any instances of reported confirmed cases within the opt-out program?
I don't believe so.
Okay, and then
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm not always sure that families maybe are communicating that with us. They may be, if there are, they may be communicating it with QVHD.
Sure.
Because their students aren't coming into school. So I'm not sure about that.
Sure. And I know that I'm going to say something really nice about people behind their backs right now, but Ginny Somerville and Gretchen Cahill within the opt-out program are working miracles right now. It's not preferable to being in person. That's obviously the best case scenario. But for folks who've kind of figured out a way to find a rhythm within the opt-out program, are we going to pick their brains at all on how to help with the transition for some other folks for this limited period of time?
Yeah, they're really good models for the rest of us. They're doing just a wonderful job, Amanda.
I agree. They're really doing
all
good.
of them.
Yeah. Okay. And then the second thing, or the last thing I have is, I know that we don't have the specifics around what is causing the positive cases that coincide or overlap with people who are in our district. But is there a way for us to perform some kind of a root cause analysis through QVHD? Can we request from QVHD that they stratify their data and give us high-level buckets? So for example, this is from a party. It doesn't have to be personally identifiable at all. Like remove all the personally identifiable information, but just give us some high level categories. This is from, personal parties. This is from work related stuff. This is from restaurants, etc. I think that kind of data would be very helpful for performing a root cause analysis, and it might help other folks inform
We can certainly ask. We do.
decisions
Go ahead,
that are
Jen,
kind of
I'm gonna
outside of
jump
our
in,
control.
but we certainly do ask, and we do get a small snippet of that, especially when some of the cases are related to each other outside of the school to do with certain individuals in our district. So we have that, but like, for example, a restaurant, there's nothing that's been communicated necessarily to us very often regarding a restaurant community spread or along those lines, but small gatherings and sometimes even youth athletic events. We, through the contact tracing, we do get information around that. Jen, please jump in. Jen K, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, absolutely. QVHD has continued to communicate that these are small friend and family gatherings and those extracurricular activities. That's what they're seeing spreading it, especially the small friend gatherings. People may go to a sporting event together and they're staying distance there, but then they go out and hang out afterwards, in the car for 15 minutes or something like that. So we're certainly seeing that most of the cases are coming from these smaller gatherings. We see parents who may get it at work, and then it spreads within the families. We're certainly learning there are a lot of people who are related to each other within North Haven. So while sometimes it sounds like, several cases popped up at this one location, you don't know the degrees of separation there in terms of the family relations, because we certainly have plenty of those here, whether they're from our families and our students, our staff members and their families. So it's really still coming heavily from these small gatherings, the friends, the families, and some of those extracurricular activities, those youth, leagues where they travel and they have kids who come from a lot of different towns. And when those things do pop up, we do hear about, a league somewhere with, 3-4 different towns playing together and some of our kids are positive. QVHD does call us and tell us right away, there is a problem. This is the team, this is the return date, and these are the students. We've already reached out to them or are about to reach out to them, but we want to let you know as well. So they've been always communicating with us when they find out about our students, and we communicate with them when we find out first.
Thank you.
What is the status of our athletic teams at this point? When we go fully remote, are our kids still participating in their league activities?
They will finish up if they haven't already. I believe the last day of the fall season was potentially this past Tuesday, and there may be some playoffs or playoffs, I guess is the correct word, after last Tuesday, but I believe we're winding down in almost all of our sports. Winter sports, there's been a delay to that till December, and the CIC is still weighing in on a start date for that.
Okay, thanks.
Board members, does anyone else have a question, comment that they'd like to make?
Hi.
Okay. All right, then, board members, if there is no other comment to be made, then may I have a motion to approve transitioning to a full remote learning model beginning Monday, November 16th, 2020 through Friday, December 4th, 2020.
So moved.
Okay, I think I already did this. I apologize. And I apologize because I had another question that I wanted to talk to Mr. Stirk about. Patrick, right now we're saying if this motion passes that we are going to close school from learning in person on from November 16th, 2020 to December 4th, 2020. I want to acknowledge and see what can we do, because if we're having this plan, like for the many parents who are planning to send their children to school on Monday, what kind of assurance can we give them, or what can we say to them to say, we will let you know by X day, if we're going full time, back to school, Monday, Tuesday, off on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or should we tell our families we have all intentions of going back to school December 4th, 2020, but it might not be a bad idea to have a backup plan. I just want parents and the community to know that we are very cognizant of how, if our motion should pass, how that affects people who were considering to go back to school on Monday.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And the fluidity of this year has really shown us that predicting is difficult to do. I would like to give every assurance that either the week before Thanksgiving or immediately after, we'll have a good idea on how we will be able to proceed December 7th through, I believe, December 23rd. But even in speaking to QVHD, this is a week to week, sometimes based on our infection and our case rate data. So other districts have been moving to full remote through January. I think they may believe that this is going to continue to get worse. I'm not willing to commit to that yet. So I do believe that we will be able to give information as soon as possible, if not before Thanksgiving, then very shortly after, to allow that week for parents to prepare for another remote week or weeks.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. It was just something I wanted to address so that our community, our school community, understood that we are cognizant of some of what happens when a decision gets made so quick with short notice. Okay, then I'll go back to the motion. I'll go back to asking for a vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. So school, we will do remote learning beginning Monday, November 16th, 2020 through Friday, December 4th, 2020.
And Ms. Anderson, I will send a community letter out tomorrow informing all parents and guardians regarding this. And I will also include the PowerPoint that was shared tonight so families can reference that as well.
Okay. And I also know that, we've been also for people, we've already just voted, but we have been in close contact with the town, letting them know our thoughts and what we're doing. And I'm sure, as most of you know too, the town has closed most of their public buildings down to appointment only. They're asking people to, at least I think at the town hall, appointment only for visits. And I believe the library may be closed. Don't quote me on that. I'm not positive about the library, but I believe most public buildings are closed except for appointment only. Okay. Next on our agenda is our administrator's contract. May I have a motion to approve the administrator's contract dated July 2021 through June 30th, 2024?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Any discussion?
I had a quick question. How many of our administrators are 11-month and how many are 12-month at the current time?
We have I take that back, 2 administrators that are currently 11-month, 2 at the high school.
And is that a choice upon hire, or is that something that is in the job description?
It is in the job description, but due to some of the movement in the past year to 18 months, some of our 11 months have gone to 12 and vice versa.
Okay, thanks.
I have another question on the 11-month versus 12-month. Is that offered as a perk?
No, it's not offered as a perk. It's just as a position that we do not need to employ 12-month administrators, full-time administrators at the high school. Currently, we have 1 that stays with Dr. Dalai throughout the summer, and then the 2 others do have that month off.
Okay. And then on page 8 of the packet, Article 4, Section E, in the case of an appointment, to an administrative position, does the appointee need to submit an application and a resume, or is that done without, with just simply the appointment?
Normally, if it's done within the district, the appointment, which obviously I think that's what you're referring to, Amanda, an appointment within district.
Yep.
Usually they do not have to submit a full application or resume because we already have those things on file for them. But there are interviews and conversations we have with those people to ensure they are the proper fit for the position.
And understanding that this doesn't go into effect right away, but do you anticipate needing an MOU, MOA for the administrative union for COVID?
I do not. I think that would have been established already if we did need one. Our administrators have been extremely flexible and hardworking throughout this time. So they've really kept our buildings afloat along with our teachers.
Great. And are we planning, within the contract, there is stipulations for planned attendance at conferences and stipends for that. Are we planning on continuing that practice this year? In the
conferences are virtual.
Okay.
Nobody will necessarily be attending anything out of district, and pretty much everything that is presented now is in a virtual fashion.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, all in favor? Can you raise your hands, board members? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And I ask that because I can't get everyone. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we have our assistant superintendent's report. Melinda McKenna.
Okay, I just have a couple quick things. First, a big thank you to our local Home Depot. They have provided the high school with a $500 grant for their student welfare account. So that will come up on Howard's report for your approval. But that was really generous of them. And I wanted to just piggyback off of what Amanda had talked about with the opt-out program. It is coming along beautifully. I'm grateful to Rebecca Podakowski and all of the teachers who've really just kind of built this from the ground up. We are up to 419 students at this point. So due to that increase in enrollment, we had to make some changes this past couple of weeks. On November 30th, we are going to split our fourth grade into two sections. That's one of our elementaries that has stayed at one. But there are 36 students currently in that class, so we're going to split it into two. And our middle school numbers were getting extremely high as well. So we have moved around our core coordinators' schedules a little bit and assigned them each 2 teaching blocks each day so that we could reduce the sizes of those classes. And so we started that actually on Tuesday because that's when the new marking period began for middle school. So that's all I have.
You know, Melinda, I did not hear you. How many students do we have in the opt-out program? Was it 419 or 319?
419. Yep.
Okay, so that's increased since our quite a bit since last month.
About 40 more, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Jen Stewart, did you have anything more to add for under your
positions? I do. I just have a few other things. So first, I wanted to go over the SEL, the social emotional learning core competencies because I forgot one. So it's self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, self-management, and decision-making. So students continue to receive services per their IEP, no matter which instructional model the district is in at a particular time. Continue to communicate with your child's building administrator, case manager, and other service providers regarding your child's program. PPTs continue to be remote. Any evaluation conducted on your child should be reviewed and provided to you prior to the PPT, as well as goals and objectives should be provided to you 3 days prior to the PPT for your review and input. A presentation on secondary transition was presented by Missy Wrigley from CERC. The presentation was posted on the district's Facebook page. If you would like a copy, you could just email me and I can share that with you. And there's 2 upcoming events. Information regarding the transition process to kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade will be shared at the December meeting. And extended school year information will be shared at the December meeting as well.
Stupid meeting.
Thank you, Jen. Next, we're going to go to our Director of Finance and Operations report. Howard?
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. You've seen my report. It's to Patrick. It's in what you've been presented, but I'm just going to talk about a few items that relate to the finances of the district. Overall, through the first third of the year, July through October, we've spent approximately 25% of the overall budget, which includes additional expenditures of approximately $350,000 for pre-opening COVID-related expenses that will be reimbursed through federal grants. I just want to bring that point up in the sense that it just from a total expenditure perspective, we're doing very well from on the budget. The budget, it looks to be in very good shape at this point in time, especially since we're getting reimbursed that $350,000. And then to continue on, one of the light items that we've discussed before is the medical claims. I know that some of the board members have been interested in that and the reserves associated with those. Line item 201B, which is the medical claims trends. Currently, the Board of Ed medical claims trend is positive by about $100,000 a month. And what I mean by that is that we budget a certain amount, and we're about 100. Claims are coming in about $100,000 less each month than what that amount is being budgeted. We believe this directly attributable to the pandemic as elective procedures are postponed. It is hard to determine when claims will revert back to the norm. However, should the trend continue, we would end the year with a budget surplus of approximately $1.2 million. Now, that's not going to necessarily be savings. What we would do with that money is what we've talked about before, is then we would move that right into our reserves. And that would then bolster our reserves for the future. When elective procedures start to occur again, we're going to see a large increase in the cost of medical claims come in. So again, I'll continue to monitor this. I'll continue to monitor the trend. I will adjust the line item so that it's keeping with the trend, so that you will see exactly where we approximate will end for year end as it goes on. The next one I want to talk about is line 420A, which is cleaning services. This account is projected to be in a budget deficit position come year end due to the increased cleaning that we are doing on Wednesdays, the deep cleaning that occurs. That's an additional cost that was not budgeted for. Approximately by the time we get to year end, if we were to stay in, again, you voted now to go remote for a couple weeks. So for those 2 Wednesdays, we will not be doing this additional deep cleaning. But every time that we are in, it's approximately about $5,600 a week it's costing us to deep clean the schools. So basically, by the year end, we approximate that we'd be around $100,000 negative in this fund. So that is funds that I'm going to have to find somewhere else in the budget to balance that out. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That again, we're trying to keep the schools safe and clean, but that's an additional cost that was not budgeted for.
Excuse me, Howard, is that manpower or, work? Is that working hours or is that materials?
We use a cleaning service. So it's a cleaning service coming in and doing the deep cleaning. So it's manpower plus materials. Any other questions on that before I move forward? Okay.
Actually, I just have one quick question. I'm sorry, Howard.
Sure, absolutely.
When we look at the cleaning and we understand that the deep cleaning is, we pay the $5,600 a week. What about for our own custodians? Have they been working extra hours too? I know they're working really hard to keep the schools clean.
They are working hard, but there has been very little overtime associated with that. So the overtime has been, that's a separate line item in the budget, and I didn't bring it up, but it seems to be in good shape at this point. And again, you're right. They have been working very hard, but they haven't had to do it in an overtime.
Thank you.
Where was it? Line 4300, which is repairs and maintenance, includes the cost for cleanup and repairs after the recent tornado. That number will come back down when we get the reimbursement from the insurance. It was $110,280 of damage. There was a $10,000 deductible, so about approximately $100,000 is what should be reimbursed. Line 5600, tuition. This is tuition relates to the out-of-district tuition for special ed students. This is part of the excess cost that will be included in our application to the state for excess cost reimbursement. We fully anticipate that the state's reimbursement will bring this item along with the special ed transportation, which you will see in next month, because I've seen it come in for the invoices come in this month. Next month will also be in a negative position, but the reimbursement should bring those items back down to zero and level the budget out. And then my final point relates to the actual report itself and what that report actually represents. The report is not only a snapshot of what we have spent year to date, it is our current and best projection of expenses that can be reasonably forecast for the balance of the year. Utilizing the encumbrance method of reporting allows us to look at each line item and see in advance potential problem areas based on our current expectations of expenses. And again, this is our current expectations. Things can change. As this year, everything's been changing and we have to be very flexible. So what we're trying to do is by encumbering the budget in this manner, we can be more proactive and less reactive when unexpected expenses inevitably are incurred, such as the cleaning expense, the deep clean. So this is going to allow, by putting these encumbrances, I know where I have where there's additional money in the budget, and I can move it around so that we cover all of these necessary expenses as we move forward through the year. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions regarding my report or the budget or anything else related to finances.
I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Joe.
Amanda.
Oh, thanks, Joe. So for the hospital insurance for 201B, should we end with a surplus that we're projecting and we're appropriately funding reserves? Are we worried that this could be the calm before the stop-loss storm, that maybe we're building up additional elective surgery or elective procedure capacity for the following fiscal year? So my line of questioning comes from, if we do end with the surplus as big as we're projecting, that's great, right? That's excellent. We can appropriately fund our reserves. If we don't end with a surplus as large as we're projecting, I'm concerned that we will not appropriately be able to fund that line item next year when people, start feeling a little bit better about getting back to normal, vaccine, all that good stuff,
Exactly. So that's where what we have to do when we start to do, and again, it's starting to come into budget season now. We have to weigh that for next year's budget as well, right? How much do we put into reserves for next year and increase that number? So we'll be getting a number from the actuaries that'll tell us what we should reserve, and then we'll have to look at that and say, okay, where do we end the year? How much can we put into reserves, and what do we expect to happen with respect to these elective procedures? When people start to do, as you stated, feel better, feel more comfortable going to the doctor, having an elective procedure, the claims are going to come. And that's what I was trying to allude to, in the sense that right now it is the calm before the storm. Right now people are putting those off. And so we do have to be concerned with that. And that's why we can't just look at this as pure savings. It has to be looked at as future expenses, is the way I guess I would put it. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. And the reserves, are they included in our budget, in a budgeted line item, or are they held in a separate account?
They are held in a separate account with the town.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. On the custodians, if a custodian should contract COVID-19 and need to quarantine, do we have backup custodians, or would that be a case in which we would utilize overtime to compensate?
Well, we don't have backup custodians per se. We don't go out you can't get a substitute custodian, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So what we do is we actually, Phil Diana, who's our facilities manager, and that's under his purview. But what we would do is probably reallocate the staff, and then yes, there could be additional overtime at that point.
Great. And then 113A, which is like certified substitutes, we're not encumbering a ton there. And is that because we've hired so many substitutes, or I'm just kind of curious about that one?
No, we haven't encumbered that. And again, we that is actually where the substitutes are being paid from, those 14 that Patrick mentioned.
Oh, it came up, Paul and Cheryl.
It comes out of that line. We haven't encumbered that yet. It's one of the items that I'm working on to get encumbered, so that we're trying to project out what that would be. But again, what we're trying to do there too is that it will not. If I did the math correctly, it's probably about half of that will be about $214,000 if we encumber it completely. Would be the full year cost for 14, because it's $100 a day for each substitute for 180 days is what if you do the math out. I think it was about 214, if I recall my number correctly when I did the analysis. So, but again, there's still going to be a little bit of the opening there, a little bit of flexibility, or a little bit of budget surplus. But again, we have to be very flexible with these because we don't know what's coming down the pike when it comes to teachers being out and all that.
Absolutely. 520B is athletic liability insurance. Should winter sports suspend, or should spring sport? We don't know what's going to happen. Should spring sports suspend? Is there an opportunity to obtain liability insurance credit there?
We can always ask. I can't tell you that it'll happen, but we can always ask because I know insurance companies have been giving credits back on property, home, travel, whatever. I think not property, but mostly on your auto.
Yep.
And so that's one of the things we can ask the question. That doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to ask.
It's my favorite. Asking's my favorite. And then just to go back to the 2 excess fund accounts, can you just help me understand what I realize that we're reserving them at this point. Can you just kind of help me understand the difference between those 2 accounts? Because I'm getting questions on that.
Sure. So you're talking about the capital and the excess funds from prior year.
Capital project funds and the 1920 non-lapsing
Certainly.
funds.
And one of the items I'd like to bring up to mention is that you'll notice that the capital funds we had put, if you recall from prior meetings, $282,000 away from 1920 was put in that account, but the balance is now increased to 461. What I did was I went back and did a reconciliation to the town's account versus our account, and apparently there was money in reserve being held there from prior years, even before 1920. So that's why the new balance you see is the 461. So we actually have $461,000 for capital projects. Capital projects, we need a new roof on a school. If we need one of those larger projects, a new driveway, new parking area, something like that, or work done on a building. That's what that capital project money funds are for. The excess funds can be used for anything that's related to the budget and to the education. The educational budget of the district. So again, that's the difference. One can be capital projects and one can be used for really anything that we want it to be used for. And primarily we're holding in a reserve so that if we can utilize it at year end, we can then move it over to the medical reserve because we're underfunded at this point in time.
Do we have priorities laid out if in the scenario where we do have some excess dollars from the health insurance line item and we do get reimbursed from the state and federal government for additional COVID expenses, and we have that 461 in capital? Do we have like items that we're looking at accomplishing there?
So one of the things we're doing is we're tracking all COVID related expenses that have not been reimbursed, right? So that would be our first line item, would be to reimburse those, because those are unbudgeted items. Those are items that we had to do during the year that no one planned for. So those would be the primary items. I have a list of those. If I can send it to you if you'd like to see that. So we are tracking that, and we track anything that's above and beyond what we would consider normal for the school year.
Okay, thanks.
And just to answer your question, man, just to go on to that, just the reason we're tracking is because if in the future we've already maximized what the state will give us back. It's that $137,000 I've talked to in the past, but there's also talk of additional funds coming. Now with the new administration coming, there's talk of schools and local states getting additional funds. If something comes out, that's why we're tracking it for that purpose, so that we can always go back and get reimbursed from that. If that happens, if it doesn't happen, we could always go to these $460,000 worth of funds to reimburse the budget.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Hi, Howard.
Hey, Joe.
So it wouldn't be one of your reports if I didn't kind of harp on the reserve level again. I know we're saying maybe the end of the fiscal year, we'll see what's left in the 1920 non-lapsing funds. I just want to throw it in there again. My opinion is we should dump as much money into that reserve as we can. The other question I had is that capital projects fund. I know you mentioned it's for things like non-reimbursable COVID expenses, right? But does that also cover like that list that Phil Diana gives us every year at budget time of things that he wants to do? Would that be where that money would come from?
just to clarify, it doesn't cover the non-reimbursable COVID. That was the excess funds. If you look at it, that's item 2. That on my report, the 1920 non-lapsing funds would be that's the potential that we can utilize anywhere. The one, the list that Phil gives you would be item number 1, which is the capital projects.
Right. Okay.
So,
yep. And then I just had one quick question on a line item. It's 613A custodial supplies. Is that what was the other line? Because you talked about 420A, right? The cleaning services. Can you just touch on what the 613A, the custodial supplies?
Sure, and you're looking at the negative. You're looking at the negative number there, correct? The negative 68,000, right? So basically, where we're putting, so the 137,000, a good portion of the COVID-related expenses are in that line item, and so that's why. So we should be getting reimbursed for a good portion of that. That should bring that back into line. That'll be reimbursed. Right now, I've applied for it. I'm waiting for fiscal approval from the state on that. I've provided them all the documents that they need, and I'm just waiting, and it should be paid to us in December. So that line item will go back to a positive or a budget surplus in December.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay. Our next item on our agenda is approval of the transportation contract with M&J Bus. May I have a motion to approve the transportation contract with M&J Bus?
So moved.
May I have a second? Randy, thank you. Discussion. Is there any further discussion? I know we've had some talks about this in the past. Is there anything that anyone wants to talk about with this?
I do have
Could you just give just like a high level overview of Section 9, which is COVID-19 pandemic response part of that service agreement or contract?
Sure, I'll talk to it since I personally negotiate. Basically, what we tried to do is we tried to negotiate so that when the schools are closed and the buses are not running, there'd be some savings to the district. And again, the logic behind that is that if the buses are running, why should the taxpayers of the town of North Haven be required to continue to pay for a service that they're not receiving, right? Basically, the buses aren't running, children aren't being delivered to schools. So the logic was, how could we get some savings there? But one of the issues that we have right now, and we've talked about this, is that there's a very hard time getting drivers. They're having a hard time now simply because people just don't want to drive buses because they're afraid. Or North Haven also has an Amazon facility where drivers are going over there because it's more stable work. So one of the things we had to compromise on was that the drivers would be kept on in the case of where if we were to shut remotely like we did in March for the balance of the year, they would have to keep the drivers on in order to be sure that if we came back to school, the drivers were there, right? To be able to be able to drive the buses and transport. So again, that was the logic we put that was in there, was to say that in case we did go remote, we could achieve some savings, and we were able to achieve 10% savings. It's not a lot, but it's something, and it's so that we put into place a mechanism that allows us to do that.
Yeah. It's fun talking about this.
Did someone have a comment? Just trying to think what numbers down. Jen, Amanda, did you have something to say?
I do have some questions. Were you done, Howard?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I hope I answered Joe's question. I just want to make sure I did.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
So this is going to be a 5-year contract. Weren't we in a 3 or 4 year contract previously? Or
I believe it was a 5-year. I think it was a 5-year. I thought it was a 5-year, yeah.
Okay. And in page 3 of the bus contract packet, section 3.1, who's the board's designator to review the routes, the bus numbers, like the number of runs that we're doing? Is that you, Howard?
It normally falls to M&J Bus Company. They have a kind of a route provider or a route, I don't know, machine's the wrong word, but they use some type of service to help provide their best routes. And they do consult with us, but they're the experts in that, so we do rely on them. But when things start maybe going a little awry, we tend to hop in and address and try to accommodate for these one-offs of dead-end streets and things like that. So we do have some ability to talk through them, to talk it through with them.
Okay. And then on page 8 in subsection A, it talks about kind of getting credited for when they're not able to make their routes. And I'm just wondering, are we getting credits for, as an example, at Clintonville, we get emails all the time that the white and the gold buses are being combined. Even though they're able to technically complete the routes, are we getting credited for there being less buses in use?
We're just not being charged.
We're okay.
Six of one, half dozen the other.
Yeah, it's the same. That's fine. On page 5, it's section 4.3.1. It says a non-admitted carrier would be acceptable for sexual misconduct coverage if written on a separate policy, and may, at the district's discretion, be acceptable for the upper levels of excess coverage. I understand getting general liability. I understand getting auto liability. But why are we requiring a bus company to get sexual misconduct liability coverage? I would just much rather they not have sexual misconduct.
Understood. No argument. However, in reviewing this contract and with Shipman and Goodwin, this is something that they asked to include in this contract. That it's kind of standard form.
It's standard, yeah.
I get that it's standard form. I sort of do take issue with it, though, because I think that rather than having a way to indemnify themselves should they fall into an issue, I think that there should be proper culpability there.
Understood.
Yeah. And then on page 10, 4.12, do we happen to have the number of accidents that have been reported over the last either contract period or 12 months with M&J? Not handy. That's okay.
I don't have it handy, but I can definitely find that out.
And then have we had complaints with them about either driver conduct or dispatcher conduct that we've had to address with them? And are we satisfied overall with how those complaints have been addressed?
Yes, there have been complaints. I wouldn't say they're any more or less than usual. And overall, yes, I'm satisfied in how they've been addressed. John, who presented to the board at last meeting, has been extremely cooperative to work with. And when things are brought to his attention, including dispatch, I think she's the dispatch manager, Lil Cooney, they are both very cooperative and responsive into addressing parent concerns when brought to their attention, as well as concerns from administration.
And it says in section 7.6 that we have the ability to remove a driver or substitute driver. Have we ever had cause or need to do that?
Yes.
Okay. And it's gone okay? We're comfortable with that? How it's gone?
It's gone okay on our end. I can't comment on theirs.
Sure, of course. Okay. Thank you.
I should just keep myself open. I keep forgetting to unmute. Okay, may I have a, okay, we can move on to the voting. All in favor of the bus contract, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. We also have to have a motion to approve the $500 donation from the Home Depot for the North Haven High School Student Welfare Fund account. May I have a motion to approve the $500 donation?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Melinda, for those who are listening in, can you, and you may have said this earlier, can you just describe really quickly what that student welfare account is, where that money would go to?
Home Depot just reached out to be able to be generous with the school district and help students with whatever needs. So Dr. Dall, I thought that was a good fund if a student needed help with, say, a ticket for something when we're, back in regular times, or if they needed help purchasing a book or a calculator or something like that. It could run the gamut of any kind of student need.
Okay, I think it's important for a lot of people to understand that we even have these type of accounts for students in need. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We will send a thank you card to Home Depot, or thank you.
Dr. Dowell said he would, yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go into the public comments part of our section meeting. Is there any ground rules for people who want to speak? I know Dan is going to be managing that, but just please say your full name when you come in. Okay. And I'm going to remind people again to please keep your phone on mute while other people are speaking. Thank you.
I was going to have everyone type their full first and last name into the comment section and type the word comment, and then I'll call everybody one by one.
Where's the comment?
Chat box. Okay, so the first name we have is Beth Esposito. If you could please unmute yourself and state your comment.
Hi, this is Beth Esposito. Thank you guys, for taking public comment. I have to say I've had some great teachers and some terribly underperforming teachers over the years and both ends of the spectrum. So I'm going to preface what I say with that, but first thing I want to say is I'm disappointed that we didn't get a stronger start to the school year, and I sent Mr. Sturck an email over the summer to that effect. When I look at Europe, who's still remaining open in most countries, including Italy, Germany, where I have friends that live, I see my kids falling further and further behind in the global marketplace. And when I look at even neighboring towns and neighboring states. So, wanted to put that out there. The second thing I wanted to say is, I think somebody had asked about the state of Connecticut, and if we hadn't actually this percentage of kids at home out versus in school remote learners. The state of Connecticut does have a dashboard where you could see COVID cases by their learning models. So that might be helpful for the board to see. About 20% of the cases reported are still remote learners. So that'll give you kind of an idea of what's going on going forward. So questions I want to ask going forward too is, what is the accountability for teachers? Because at the middle school, I know there's supposed to be enrichment, and none of that has happened this week. So should I expect that to be happening soon? And as far as instruction goes, we cut instruments, we cut language, and we added social emotional learning, which seems a lot like religion without a deity to me. So I think we're in dangerous territory there. I'd like to see less obsession with meditation and things of that sort, and more reading, writing, and arithmetic going forward, and that would be great. And that's really what I had to say.
Thank you for your comment. And to answer your question, at the middle and high school level, yes, you can expect to see more enrichment blocks in the afternoon. Really, when this started, it was the end of the marking period, and I believe the teachers were really focusing on students to get them ready for the end of the marking period, help boost up their grades a little bit, provide some intervention. So moving forward, I do believe you will see an increase in enrichment and meeting other students' needs as well.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, next we have Krista Kaplan. Could you please unmute yourself, state your name, and then state your comment?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Krista Kaplan, 14 Governors Drive. And I know Amanda and both Melinda brought this up, but I just wanted to take a minute just to acknowledge some of the elementary staff teachers for opt-out. I have a kindergartner and a second grader in the opt-out program, and they have been doing such amazing and wonderful things with them. And you can see the hours and hours the teachers are spending developing the lessons and making things digital and just doing what they're doing. And, you know, to get a bunch of kindergartners to sit in front of a computer and have fun and still learn, to me as a parent, is an amazing thing to see. And they have all been doing really, really amazing. So I just wanted to comment that publicly for everyone because they have been doing super great things with them. And then I had a question also from a teacher perspective, because I had a couple of parents reach out to me. So I told them I would ask at the board meeting if you guys can just clarify the lunch pickups for parents. I know it was sent out in an email and I tried to find that to forward to parents, but I could not. So now that we're going to be fully remote until December 4th, if somebody can just go over, I don't know if we do breakfast too, but just food services pickups that are available for parents in the district for their kids.
Thank you, Krista, for the comment too. So lunch meal pickup, it's breakfast and lunch, begins at 11 o'clock at the high school loading dock. Right down on Elm Street, just go around the building to the back. And it's from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Every day.
And we'll add it into our community letter tomorrow too, so people have it as a resource.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, because I just got a text from someone who asked me to clarify that the lunches are still for everyone in the school district.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Right. So again, we'll put that into the communication also.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Cut it out.
Okay, next up we have Chris Blyth. Could you please state your name and then state your comment?
Hi, yes, I'm Chris Blyth. I actually have a 5-year-old in Mono East. So my main concern is really, like you guys actually brought up earlier, is quality of education. Having a 5-year-old trying to maintain focus and also really learn from the distance learning is becoming quite difficult, especially for two full-time working parents. So I'm worried about the standard of education compared to, say, like North Branford and surrounding towns who maintained in-person full-time. So that's a big concern going forward. And secondly, I think from what I understand earlier calling your office, that the Monoese issue is not enough staff members. So do you have like policies and procedures in place for teachers, administrators, et cetera, to maintain distancing? So if one teacher has an issue, it's pretty much confined to maybe their helper or whoever other teacher in her classroom, rather than, say, cross-contaminating, for lack of a better word, like multiple staff members?
So yes, we do have policies for that. However, there are some situations that call us to breach those policies in order to maintain a safe environment for children. And
all right.
So it's not necessarily a lack of staffing per se, but the staff who is included in this quarantine are vital to the life of Monoese on a daily basis and cannot be replaced by substitutes.
All right. Like I said, I understand that. My main concern is the quality of education and obviously the funds it is to maintain. My daughter has the proper assistance to do it. And when, like you guys brought up with busing, paying for services that we aren't really quite getting. But, you know, I understand.
We continue to have the same expectations regardless of the model that we're in. And I think our teachers are getting pretty well versed at, unfortunately, switching from model to model, but also becoming quite adept at providing strong virtual instruction. And we've had good practice at it, unfortunately.
Oh, with that being said, yes, I am very impressed with how her teacher is handling it. And I think the teachers have adapted very well. And I wasn't trying to take anything away from them.
No, I know.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next we have Joe Piscatelli. Could you please unmute yourself and make your comment?
Yes, good evening, Joe Piscatelli. The question about the transportation contract that just got approved by the board. It was just an extension. It never went out to bid. And any reason why it didn't go out to bid in with the pricing was the pricing within the increase of the pricing. Was it less than what we were paying now, or did they go up like a 2% or 3% on the contract?
I believe it's, Howard, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 2.3 or 2.8 per year? I think 1 year is 3 and it goes down to 2.3, I believe, for the following 4 years. And the reason it did not go out to bid is we have a strong and comfortable relationship with MMJ for, I think, the past 15 years or so, if not longer. So we were comfortable re-upping with them.
And you said that was a 5-year contract, correct?
Correct.
Now, does the board allow any other companies to come in and help out with athletic trips if the town can get better pricing to save money for the students that have private clubs and all that?
I think we'd have to explore that situationally, and I'd have to check the contract in order to do that. But we would give priority to M&J since they are a service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next we have Alyssa D'Amico. Could you please unmute yourself and make your comment?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
So I just have 2 questions, I guess. At the beginning of the school year, the students at the elementary school level, K through 2, were given bags with instructional materials. And one of those things that they were given was like a book bag, literal books. So we haven't gotten any new ones, and now we're out. And I was going to ask, like, is there plans for maybe pickups at the high school for new book bags? Because my son's been reading the same books over and over again, and he does not do well with the computer. He does not like Raz Kids at all. And he's much better if he has a physical book in his hand, but I don't have the types of books where he's reading to his level. So I don't know if that's something you guys can consider, like a swap out of the books now at this point, that so we can get some new materials for them. That would be appreciated because it's been 2 months. And then my other question would be, I am concerned with the kids and falling behind, right? That's a thing. Everybody's concerned with that. At the end of this year, because we don't know where this is going or how long this distance learning is going to actually continue for, if a parent feels that their child should not move on, is that going to be okay to consider and recommend? Because I honestly don't know that my son can move on. So, and I really don't want him to be in a position where he has to just because we're moving kids along.
So to answer your first question, yes, it's something that we could definitely consider at the buildings for a book swap and have kind of a drive-through method for that. I think that's an excellent idea. And as far as the retention is concerned, I think that's just a conversation that you could have with your child's team at the school. Bring your concerns forward and I think have a quality discussion around that. And I don't think it's any different than any other year where that conversation will be considered by, obviously the parent and the team, and we can move forward on a situational or child by child basis.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me, Patrick?
Yeah, I can.
I'm sorry, I was knocked out of the meet. So we are planning some, I didn't hear the whole questions, but I know it was about some of the books. So we are going to set up some book swaps. Probably we use the loading dock at the high school. So that may be a place we use, or throughout the schools, but more will be coming about that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Alicia Burr. Could you please unmute yourself, state your name, as well as your comment?
Hi, I'm Alicia Burr at 41 Kings Highway. I was, again, proponent of sending the kids to school at the beginning of the year full-time because I knew this would happen toward the holiday season. So my first question is, why on December 7th you're going to revote to go to school for another week and a half? Why not just keep them remote till after the first of the year? Because your numbers are not going to get better in December. And number 2, I have a question as far as, did you have Quinnipiac interns in the school system in the last couple of months?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so do you think when somebody asked the question early on, you know, about sports or kids, do you think that that had any impact on your numbers? Because, you know, as we know, there were plenty of Quinnipiac students at big parties at the end of October. And it seemed to me like your numbers shot up right after that as well. And I, for one, think that kids should play sports. My son played all summer baseball, played soccer. There wasn't one child that was sick. And I think for mental health, these kids really need to be doing something, especially being on a computer all day long. And then my last comment would be for the kids too, if you're remote, that the teachers really need to make sure that every kid has their camera on. They can't opt out of not being on. They should be marked absent if their camera's not on, because it's difficult enough for a teacher. I can't imagine seeing a blank screen.
Thank you. I think I'll start backwards. I 100% agree, and we are encouraging teachers to encourage students to keep their cameras on. I think that's one of the main ways we can keep engagement and involvement and the actual connection between students and staff. I agree with you regarding the sports that we haven't seen much, if any, really transmission within the actual sporting events. However, it's the events that precede or follow, as Ms. Kosniewski said earlier, the carpools or small gatherings that could happen on the way to or after the games. As far as the interns at Quinnipiac, we have not seen through our contact tracing that the current surges have very much to do with our interns. I know there was that big party at Anthony's a few weeks ago. I do not believe that, actually I won't say that, immediately after we did have a lot of our interns not coming back into school. And I can't comment on whether they were at the party or not, so that's not for me to say. And for the revote, I understand your perspective on why revoting or why deciding on December 7th, but we still, I know we all make predictions, and I can understand and see where yours is coming from, that our numbers are just going to get worse. We just want to ensure that we're still leaving the door open in case we can get back in, because we know the value of in-person learning if it's in a safe environment.
Well, yeah, I agree, and thank you for that. But, you know, to go back for a week and a half is more disruptive. And then parents can plan and then hopefully go back full-time in January.
I hope so.
Well,
but we will communicate any changes to that as soon as we possibly can. We want to give the parents the ability to plan.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mike Kafer. Could you please unmute yourself, state your name, address, and comment?
Hey, my name is Mike Kiefer. Mr. Stirk, I wanted to say thank you. We've had a lot of back and forth emails regarding everything lately, and communication has been very good with the school district. My comments are more or less towards the teaching this year. The teaching this year, the curriculum, it's been great. We, for one, have Mrs. York, and my son's in special education, so he deals with Miss Shaw and his para, and they've gone the distance and then some from where we were last year with this. And I think that the parents don't realize, but the teachers need a lot more appreciation and respect for what's going on than what has been given. It's a whole different ballgame this year. Special education's got it going on this year. Everybody seems to have clicked this time better on. The only thing I would say that, and Mr. Stirk, I've made this notice to you a few times, is going back. My feelings is we need to do the cohorts going back when we go back to school until we know we got a strong grasp on it before we just send everybody back. And then we have a situation where a bunch of kids are quarantining. Like at the high school, there was 85 that had to quarantine at one point. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, understood. I understand your point of view. Thank you, Mr. Kiefer, for the kind words to the teachers. It's definitely echoed.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and you guys, everyone be safe.
Okay, next we have Andrea Samperi. Please unmute yourself, state your name, address, and comment.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrea Samperi. I am a parent here in town. I have a middle school and a high school student, and I'm also an instructional paraprofessional at Clintonville School. I actually just want to piggyback off of what Mr. Kiefer just said regarding the teachers, and I'm not putting down the opt-out teachers. I know what they're doing is extremely hard too, but I want to give a shout out personally to my coworkers that I work with every single day and what they're doing coming into the building every day for their students. To me is amazing. I honestly don't know how they do it, but with a smile on their face, I just wanted to give a brief thank you to them at the high school level and at the middle school level too. Being home now, I see my kids. The three of us are all online now, so I have a really good visual on what's going on at all levels. But as far as personally at Clintonville Elementary School, working side by side with these teachers and how amazing they've been, not just the teaching aspect, but the SEL and the mask break and the extra hand washing. It's so much, and I just a huge thank you to them as a coworker and as a parent. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Andrea, too, because as a para in the classroom, you're there too. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Holden Pirelli. Could you please unmute yourself, state your name, address, and comment?
Thanks, Dan. Holden Pirelli, 266 Clintonville Road. Maybe I missed this earlier. Just a question of clarification. When and how will teachers find out about the current learning model continue until December 4th?
Well, the teachers found out tonight, along with everyone else, and there'll be a staff email that goes out tomorrow, as well as a community email.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Holden.
Okay, next we have Dana Murphy. Could you please unmute yourself, state your name, address, and comment?
Hi, Dana Murphy, 1 LeGrand Road. I just want to also say that as much as I'm not looking forward to remote learning, I think that there's a benefit to being fully remote through the first of the year, not only for families to plan, but I think also for teachers to plan appropriately their lessons. To that extent, and I know that that's a closed subject at this point, if more families and students opt out to full remote learning, will there be a reallocation of teacher resources to plan appropriately?
I will not say no. That's always a possibility, depending on the number of students that choose, or families that choose to move over to the opt-out program. We've been able to utilize all the staff we have in district now, our coordinators. So we're getting very close to what we have available. Melinda, am I missing anything on that? But
no, and our intent really is to have the least amount of additional transitions than we can. So, we know that we could probably reduce some of our in-person classrooms, but we haven't chosen to do that because we don't want to disrupt classrooms right now. So that would be a very last resort.
Okay, next we have Kate Syak. Could you please unmute yourself, state your name, address, and comment?
This is Kate Syak at 196 Pool Road. I had a concern over the high school band practice, and I understand that we're going remote again, but there was a tent provided for the band to practice outside, and the tent was not functional, could not have all the people underneath it, and the kids were consistently having to hold it from blowing away. Is there going to be a better plan in place for when the kids return?
Yes, if there will be. Instrument and band is difficult at this time because in order to have a safe environment, they do need to be outside. Weather in New England is never very very cooperative with us, but we will look into that, improve that. Because thank you for bringing that to my attention. I didn't know that they were holding it from blowing away. So that's something we certainly need to remedy.
Okay, thank you.
And next we have Maria Frigo. Could you please unmute yourself, state your name, address, and comment?
Maria Frigo, 11 Charter Oak Place. I just had a quick question because I don't have any experience with anything being reported to DPH or anybody close to me getting sick, luckily. I'm fortunate in that way. But when schools are remote, is there as much of a communication between who's getting sick in town and who's not getting sick in town? Or is that really driven by students being symptomatic in school and being sent home? Like, are tests still reported to you guys? Are our numbers going to be accurate if we go remote for the next 2-3 weeks?
The tests actually get reported back to the health department. Oftentimes parents or individuals will report positive test results to our school system first because they're staying home and quarantining people. However, those test results typically do end up back into the hands of Quinnipiac Valley Health District and eventually Connecticut Department of Health. So whether or not we have in-person learning, those test results still do make it back into the numbers. And as we're moving into that remote learning, we will continue to request that any positive result are reported to either the school nurse or myself. We do continue to report numbers to the state in terms of how many of our students, how many of our staff. Every time we have a case, we have to log how many and whether we're in person that day or not.
Thank you.
And next we have Cheryl Sobolewski. Could you please unmute yourself, state your name, address, and comment?
Yes, thank you. Cheryl Sobolewski, 125 Blakesley Avenue. First, thank you to everyone for your time. It's always really informational to sit through the meetings and hear the information. I know so many of the parents, we do communicate through various mediums to share information. And so I would all like to state that the teachers have been phenomenal. My daughter ended up being one of those students that needed to quarantine for a bus exposure. So, you know, the rest of her class was in the school and she and just a couple students were home, and our teacher made that so seamless to be able to keep her engaged. And I truly, truly appreciate the effort and the energy that goes into that. That being said, I think the one thing that we as parents have struggled with is just getting information at the last minute. So, or what feels like the last minute. I know the communication to go remote this week came out on Friday afternoon. And when you are an essential worker and you have to report to your jobs and your jobs have you scheduled to be there, and then you're suddenly shifting around those schedules, it's hard to do that late on a day and on a Friday. So I think my one request would be if there's any way to have a meeting earlier in the week so that the decision can be made. We know what the trends are. And I guess not being afraid to make the decision. I'd rather know that we're going to be home and we have to figure things out and have the time to plan to do that than to get the information at the very last moment. So, you know, we're always able to work with things. We don't really have a choice, but you know, my daughter goes to an after-school program and I've had to cancel that, and that impacts her business in the way that she runs. And so there are just ramifications to every decision that's made and planning that needs to happen along various steps of the way. So if there's just any way to make those decisions, you know, just a little bit more timely to share information. That's all I have. Thank you.
And very fair request, and I apologize for the Friday cancellation. Unfortunately, when we do get the final numbers, we do recognize the trends, but the state and the CSD releases their numbers on Thursday evening. So once we're back Friday and we're making decisions, we do have some things in our head, how we'd like to proceed most every time, but the way this has been presented to us almost on a daily basis, where we are changing our decisions or partial decisions. So to answer your question, yes, we will make every effort to give parents fair warning. I totally respect that.
And I just would like to say, Patrick, I don't believe that the board will have a vote about going back to school on December 7th. We'll have another meeting for that. That'll be something that we'll have a conversation with you at and have it be your decision.
I do think the decision, if we do not return, will be made for us, actually.
Okay, good point. But I was saying we won't have another, I don't think we'll have another meeting for that. We'll make that decision and then just
as early as
announce
possible.
it as early as possible.
That's it for public comments.
Thank you, Dan.
Welcome.
And just to echo what many members have said, like, we are really grateful for all of the work of all of our teachers and our paraprofessionals and our administrators. Together, we've really been able to make a very difficult situation as best it can be. So we're very grateful to all.
Absolutely. Okay. Then may I have a motion to adjourn the November 12th, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of Ed?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, just my final point is I want to thank everyone from the public for joining us and thank the board again for your good questions and assistance throughout the past week, and well to, as always, to our teachers, paras, administrators, and our central office staff. So I want to just say thank you to all, and I wish you all a good holiday. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Do you want me to keep talking? No. Okay, motion passes. Meeting's over. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Good luck with meeting, Anita.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Doc.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.